Hi, this is Randy LaRock with Sinister One Podcast from Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. We're going to be talking about all things music with musicians, photographers, producers, engineers, and luthiers. So stay tuned and let's get this started, shall we? All right, I gotta make sure I do like a booger check and all that kind of stuff, and there's no shit in my beard and all that. Oh shit, we're recording. Hey, this
That's
is
all right.
Randy LaRock with Sinister One Podcast, and this is episode one. And today we're going to be talking to a gentleman that I've known for a better part of 7 years. And over the years, we've had many discussions about what he does and what I do. And I've leaned on him many times for some technical support and how to do stuff. So I just wanted to introduce you to Mr. Joe Falcione. Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Greetings. A little bit about myself. Um, Creative, family man, combat vet, uh, videographer, podcaster, voiceover talent. I don't know. It's a list is what is it? What a jack of all trades, master of
Master of
none type
none,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
But you do make films. That is one of
I do.
your great passions that you do, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's one of the things I probably enjoy most in the creative space for sure.
No doubt. So I mean, everybody's has that person or that incident in life that gets them into it. That goes, that's what I want to do. What made you decide to start making films?
So it's a good question, man. That's a loaded question. Well, since I was a kid going to see movies, of course, that was always the big thing. Just I loved films. I watched as many movies as I could growing up, and I'd watch them over and over again. And I realized as I got older, what I was actually doing, I wasn't watching them over and over again for entertainment. I was watching them because I was studying them,
Hmm.
and I was studying them almost in the subconscious level that I would see some certain things, and then I would caption one point to the next, and then in my thought time when I was, you know, daydreaming in high school and daydreaming in class, or even as far back as elementary school, I remember thinking through. I had complete scenes lined up in my head from beginning to end, action sequences that if if you could have a comic book and I was an artist, I could draw that storyboard right there and then, point by point, minute by minute, second by second, where the timing would line up with music and those types of things. And so, when I as I got older, I realized that was really my passion,
Hmm.
and it didn't really become available to me as an option. And I guess I didn't know how to fight for it when I was younger. I would talk to my parents about it. I'm like, hey, look, I really want to direct movies or do this, and I would take my dad's 8 millimeter camera out and or my 16 millimeter film camera back in the day, and I'd shoot stuff. And um, you know, as I got older, I was ultimately it just wasn't in the deck of cards where I think that my in their wisdom and in their old school ways, you know, becoming a film director was a shot in the dark. It was whether or not you'd be successful at it really wasn't an option. It
Right.
just didn't happen to guys. You had to be at that level. You had to be at that top level. And I think that my dad's position was, look, I want you to go to school, but I want you to do what you want to do, but you also have to make sure that you're going to be successful at it. And so I think if I had a different position, if I was a bit wiser, I guess, had I been prepared, I would have pitched it a different way. Like, Dad, send me to school, send me to film school, and my backup major will be like criminal law or criminal justice or something. I think if I pitched that, my dad would have been like, let's do it.
Well,
But
hindsight's always 2020, though,
yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. And at that time, because I couldn't really go to film school, I didn't have any passion outside of that arena. But I'm also, I'm a big kid at heart, right? So um, I wanted to do something like electrical engineering then. If that was the case, I wanted to see, okay, what kind of future could I build? I liked electronics. I was good with computers. for what limited experience computers were in that time. This is back in the 80s. Not to give away my age, but I'm not a young
That
sprite
gray on
anymore.
your face does it all
Yeah, it
for you, bro.
tells everybody different. So
I know it.
so yeah, I was I was talking to this Air Force recruiter about doing electrical engineering. I'd really done well in my ASVABs, and they kept me on this block for like 6 months for this. You know, you had the waiting game. They couldn't really get me exactly what I wanted, and I wasn't going to go in without something signed on my contract, which is great advice from my father.
Mhm.
Don't do that, son. Don't get in there and think that you're going to get it because you have to have it in your contract. So I was like, look, unless you can get me electrical engineering, I'm not signing up. So in that negotiation process, and I was also going to college at the time. It took about 6 months to really work it out with the recruiter exactly what I want to do. And by that time, after that 6 months time, my ASVAB scores expired. So you only have, I think at that time, you had to sign up within like either 3 months, 90 days, or 6 months. And I was well beyond the 6 month period. So they gave me the option to take my ASVABs again. So I took them again, but this time I had been drinking the night before. I rushed through some of that stuff, and I thought, I'd had a good score before, but maybe I'll just, breeze through this like a jackass. And I didn't. I didn't do as well as I did the first time. So that was reflected in my options. That limited my options, but I could still do electrical engineering, but they still would not commit to the contract. And one of the things my dad said, don't talk to the Army guys and don't talk to the Marines. He doesn't want me going in. He didn't want me going in the infantry or anything like that, which I understand.
Mhm.
And on top of that, his position was, look, I don't want you to just live here. You can't just work and live here. You have to go to school and you have to work, and then, you always have a roof over your head. But if you're thinking you're just going to work and just live here, then you're not moving forward. You're not going to stay. That's the only way I know it, boot from the nest type thing, that type of, again, my dad is an old school Italian, love him to death. And he always wanted what was best for me. So he used to tell me, why don't you just go join the army? Just go join, or you could just go join the military. Just go join the military. And what was funny was when I went to talk to the Air Force guys, the last time I went, they were like, we can get you on as a jet tire mechanic, and then we can work you in, or you can work on jets, you can work as a mechanic, you can do these things. And like one of the options, like jet tire mechanic. I remember seeing that very specifically. I'm thinking, I'm not fucking doing this. Can I cuss on this podcast? Is it going to be
Absolutely.
all right?
It's
I'm
called
like, I'm not
Sinister One.
fucking
It's
doing
not
this.
like Bowl of Pussy Whip podcast.
Okay, I just want to make sure because it's shit's going to come out, and I want to make sure I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
going to damage your. All right, so
Oh, damage my
here I am. I'm like,
reputation. I'm already known as an asshole.
yeah, no,
What the
they're all
fuck?
good, brother. That's so funny. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that, and I found it insulting, actually, that's what they were trying to get me on. Anyway, the bottom line is, when I walked out of there, the Army guy goes, "Come on, man." He had been trying to talk to me for months. He's like, "Come on, man, come talk to me." I'm like, "No, my dad told me not to talk to you." Well, that one day, I said, he goes, "Look, just tell me what you want to do, man. Tell me what you want to do. If they can't get it, I can get it for you." And I went electrical engineering. He goes, looks at me, and he looks me up and down. He goes, "I can get that for you, man. Come on in. Let me just show you what we got." And I'm like, "What?" I said, "You can do electrical engineering." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay." So, and it was like computer science, electrical engineering, that type of stuff. So I go in there, and he's literally looking at me like, looking me up and down. He goes, "Yeah, I got something for you, man." He puts this tape in of these Rangers rappelling out of helicopters, crawling through the mud,
Dun, dun,
moving under direct fire,
dun.
jumping out of airplanes. And I'm like, fuck, man, that's what I want to do. So I signed up, literally
Of
signed up
course,
that
right.
day, took my paperwork home. I'm having that conversation with my dad, and he goes, and I said, I talked to the recruiter again. He goes, "Oh yeah, you gonna join the service? You're gonna go join, or you're gonna sign up for college or something?" I don't remember the conversation exactly. And I said, I did sign up. I'd leave in a month. And he goes, "Wait, what?" And I go, "Yeah." I said, "Wait, you've been telling me to sign up and go do this stuff." And he's like, "Son, I've been telling you to do stuff your whole life and you've never listened to me. You've done the
The
exact
one
opposite.
time, right?
So the one time I thought, I'll tell you to just go join the service. You'll end up going to
Tried
college.
that
You go
reverse
join the service.
psychology, right?
He goes, did you get electrical engineering? And I went, no. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm infantry. And he was like, what the fuck? Like, oh
Oh
my God.
man.
So we had that a bonding moment, that day, and I'll never forget it. It was very funny. It was very moving for him too, because he wanted and all he ever wants is what's best for me. And
Absolutely.
he's a good man. He's a very good man, loving father. And that being said, I left. That was in like the end of August. I left middle of September, day before my birthday, and I went in. A buddy of mine heard I was going in. He joined up. We went in the buddy system. Went to basic. Went to advanced infantry, and then we went to um, was it MIT? Not MIT. It's AIT. So you had advanced infantry training, and then we came home for Christmas break, and then we went back for airborne school, and then RIP and some other things. And yeah, man, that was my life for the next 4 years. All the point to bring it back to the creative aspect. When I was in the service, I rented a VHS video camera for a weekend. It was
Oh,
like,
those big honking heavy things.
yes,
Oh
it was like
God.
$60. I don't remember what it was. It was like it was a rental, right? And it was a piece of shit. Like the
Oh
colors were
yeah.
all off. There was nothing, half the thing didn't work. And it was a big box you had to carry around hooked up to the camera. And we went out filming that week. And I remember thinking, I really wish I had a camera that I could use in some of the stuff that I experienced, because the stuff that I was experiencing back then, this is when the Apaches were really, were really ramping up. Apache helicopters were amazing. I was at Fort Hood, so all we had were these Apaches that would line up and do these crazy stunts. The Bradley fighting vehicles were relatively new; they were being tested. The Abrams tanks were rolling off the decks. We had A-10s flying around all the time. We had Russian helicopters, captured Russian equipment that was flying around all the time. All kinds of shit.
And
And
you're
I
getting to
thought,
film this?
I didn't get to film any. I got some of it.
No.
That one weekend, we
Right.
ran around base and filmed as much as we could. But again, we were on soldier salary, right? We were enlisted. We didn't have didn't have the funds to get a camera. And back then, if you wanted a camera, it was a lot of money back then. It's not like you
No
can
doubt.
go get a GoPro or something like they're doing today.
Oh Jesus,
Anyway,
the phones, cameras on your phone are amazing.
yeah. So there was a Fisher Price camera that came out. It was the first a kid's camera, but it recorded. And I wanted to try to get one of those before I went to the Gulf. Didn't get one, but I wanted it. And then when I came back, I literally, uh, when I got out of the service, I ended up doing electrical engineering. Anyway, boring, wasn't my thing. And then I moved into IT, and I really enjoyed IT, managing IT systems, managing IT operations, and things like that. Which that was that thing. But my passion was always still filmmaking, so I incorporated filmmaking into um, training videos,
Right.
public service announcements for the agency, or at the time for like HIPAA. I was working. I was doing working for healthcare systems, so I was creating HIPAA documentation, and I was creating video subsets or video accompanying material. By the way, if I'm just rambling, you can certainly jump in and redirect. By the way, I tend to do that. Um,
No.
so, but really, what ended up happening was it was my late 30s, and I was like, fuck it, man, I need to get a camera. So I went, and this is all before like HD was available for people. And I think if you were to time it, I was probably born 10 years too early, because all of the stuff that was happening at the time, I needed to be making a career doing other things. I I didn't have the schooling to go to Hollywood and say, hey, I've got a director, a certificate for directing, and here's my student films. I didn't have any of that, so I couldn't really break into the industry.
Right.
But what I did have was machine-based filmmaking, which from video game technology, I could record video game technology and tell the other players on my Discord or my TeamSpeak at the time, hey, I need you to do this, act this out, and I'm going to just run behind you with my gun, and I'm going to capture my screen. And as you're doing that, it'll be like I'm running behind you with a camera.
Right
So
on.
that's how I started doing like the filmmaking. So anyway, that led to uh, me making some stuff, and EA Games saw it, and EA Games called me and said, "Hey, yeah, we're the directors and developers for Battlefield, and we want to know if you'd like to make a movie for us." And I'm like, "What? Sure, yeah, fuck yeah."
Yeah, no
So
doubt, right?
at the time, I was with DDS Warfare. There was probably 20 or 30 of us. We were pretty popular. We were playing against uh, uh, 10-2-4 in a lot of scrimmage matches and online gaming, because I'm a gamer too, if you haven't figured that part out. Well,
That's how we
but
actually know each other. So
yeah, through gaming, which is crazy. But um, and so I made these films just as a hobby, and then EA picked it up and said, "Look, we want you to make this bigger thing." So I was like, "Hell yeah!" So I had to figure out. This was a bit different than in-game running behind with a camera. There was this whole script setting, that server access, and because of my IT experience, I could access all the back end code and knew how to kind of manipulate the code. They gave me some basic set of instructions. I talked to
well, so
Roland
walk us through
Smith.
the creative process of that. So
Yeah.
if you're going to make this movie, so you've EA is going to say make this thing. So what is your creative process like? If somebody's out there wanting to make music videos or do what you do, how do you do your creative process? Like
All
where
right.
does it
So the
start?
creative process for like live action versus game action is totally different, and this is why. You're making a game in the Battlefield series, so you can't. The gestures are limited. You don't have, like, if you need an actor to do a certain gesture, you can't do that. So you have to use voiceovers. Well, therefore you need an actor. And your friends, I love my friends, and they all know it. And I've told them they can't act for shit. They can't. The moment you tell them a camera's on, they're like, I mean, even Steve, it's so funny. I'm like, Steve, I need you to yell like you're crashing in a helicopter. And he's like, oh my God, I'm crashing. And it's like, no, no, don't act like, just be yourself, be yourself. And he's like, man, at the moment you say action, man, I can't do it.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's that way with everybody. So that's part of the limitation. So, okay, my script now has to be defined behind what I'm able to capture in game, where it's going to make sense to an audience who may or may not play the game.
Right.
So, for instance, I know that if I've got 10 guys going against a tank, most likely they're going to die. My limits are I can bring in an airplane because we have jets in the game. I can bring in a pilot who can fly up and take the tank out, and they can call in an airstrike. So that's what we did, but we used a helicopter instead. So in like the scene where in the first, or the original Battlefield one I did, these guys are trying to draw a tank and blow the bridge up. But what happens is they really want to make the tank move forward, but it stops. So the guy calls in a chopper, and then as they're fighting, shit's getting real, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the chopper comes up over the bridge, starts lighting up the tank, and it's like a scene that I was pretty proud of, and because it was like, fuck yeah, man, that's cool, and that was that process, and then that process, you're using what's called a battle recorder on the server. So I would launch the battle recorder on the server, like I'd call it like Tank Bridge Scene 1, and then I would have the guys rush up, and the tank would come up, and then we'd say, okay, Scene 2. I'd run it again. We would do it again, but we would extend it, and then we would do it again with the chopper. And if the timing wasn't right, we'd do it again. We do it again. We do it again. So now I have a set of 10 shots in Battlefield called Tank Chopper Scene 1 through 10. Now I take those and I go back into the game on my computer, not on the server anymore. Everyone's gone, and now I can run it almost like I can run it as a camera,
Right.
and I can fly around the scene, pick up my angles, run it again, pick up another angle, run it again, and pick up another angle. The challenge is you're directing a bunch of people on who are players, and you're putting them in different positions, but you have no markers. You have to say, okay, over by that fence, the third post on the fence. When the tank comes, you have to jump over that third post because that's where the scene's going to be. It's a completely different thing. So that said, the creative process is just documenting that, kind of knowing your sketch,
Mm-hmm.
and then, building out. So it's taking into what stuff does this game have that I can utilize it and make it cool. So for that particular one, you could infiltrate um, the back line. You can infiltrate enemy line of defense and blow up their artillery. Do you remember
Yeah.
Battlefield 2?
Yeah.
This was all Battlefield 2. You could blow up their artillery. So we made it so that they had a thermal radar which prevented them from going in. That any airplanes or helicopters could be shot down instantly that weren't below a certain level. So we built that into the script so that major guys go in, and then we did a halo drop from way high, and was able to film that dropping in because I wanted to capture that. And it was interesting because when I submitted that as a film, I did a Dark Age of Camelot film, and there was what's called a Machinima Film Festival. Machinima was poorly branded. It's not it. I came up with something else I think that was much better, but it took me like 10 years to do it. I could not think of something else, and now I forgot what it was. That's how good it was. But oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot that. Anyway, the point is machinima. When people say machinima, they're like, "What the hell's machinima?" Machine-based filmmaking. There was a couple of books written about it. I was asked to provide my input on these books, which has been great. So I've got little sections where they quoted me from panels and things, because the industry was just starting out. Well, they started this um, New York Film Festival called the Machinima Film Festivals, 2003. I got a trophy sitting right over there for best editing
Nice.
for something I made in Dark Age of Camelot as just a project. It was my first, kind of the first film I made. It was actually the third film. It was part 1, part 2, and part 3. Those are the first 3 game films I ever made. Part 3, someone saw and said, "You have to submit this to this Machinima Film Festival." I'm like, "What the hell is that? What's Machinima?" Is that kind of thing. Well, anyway, Dan Marino was the guy's name. He was kind of the author of the book, and then he was also the kind of the lead um, point man for the Machinima Film Festival. And Chris and I we got nominated. We went to New York, and I won best editing for The Outcome, a
Nice.
Dark Age of Camelot movie. And some of the stuff that was there was actually really good. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a legitimate film festival. We went to the Museum of Motion Pictures and Arts. It was in the middle of New York. It was a great time. Well, then the next year I did the Battlefield stuff. This was I think the second film I did in Battlefield, but this was the big one. And when I submitted that one, I didn't win. I got nominated for 2 categories, and the music. Roger Hooper scored the music for it. Who's a great composer, and an artist, musician. But we got nominated for the music, and we got nominated for something else. I think best editing and best overall screenplay. I think, I'm not sure, but we didn't win. But at the Machinima Film Festival, Paul Marino, I think was his name, Paul Marino. Paul's like, "Hey, listen, Joe, I got to talk to you." And I was like, "Ken," he goes, "Look, I know you didn't win. I'm grateful that you were nominated, but do you know what your movie did for us?" He goes, "We realized we had best sound, we had best overall screenplay, we had best director, best film, but you know what? Your film made us realize we do not have a category for cinematography, for action, and for music. We had sound, but we didn't have music. Best original score. Your score was incredible."
Which I find
Roger Hooper's
odd
score.
because music is the mood enhancer. I mean, without any kind of
Oh my God.
music in the background, it's just moving pictures.
Yep.
The music gives you the vibe, the environment. I mean, horror movies use it for foreshadowing. When you hear that deet 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 deet, someone's getting fucking
Yeah.
axed, right? I mean, you're not going to see a love scene in there playing Slayer. I mean, as much as I love Slayer. You know, it's
music.
got a match, right?
Yeah. Like I said, the Machinima Film Festival was in its infancy. They hadn't matured yet. They hadn't really gone through all the stuff. And then hold on just one second. Somebody's popping in. What is it, Savannah?
Hey, what's
You
up?
might have to edit this out, Randy.
Yeah,
Special guest
probably.
number two.
Special guest number 2. Everyone, this is my daughter. Yeah. Savannah, hey, Savannah, seriously, we're actually doing a podcast. Just coming in to see the dog. These
Of course,
kids.
right?
All right. So anyway, I'm sorry for the interruption. You can edit
No,
out.
it's
You can
all
leave it
good.
in. Actually, I don't mind. Um, but you know, the fact that he came up and told me that made a big difference because even though I didn't win, I was disappointed I didn't win. Um, he, you know, he, the next year they had best cinematography, best original score, and that type of stuff, which you know, he attributed to my film. Bye, honey. The objective, which was pretty moving. I actually really appreciated that. But anyway, the objective was seen by EA Games,
Hmm.
and that's when they called me and said, "Hey, look, we're coming out with a new game. It's Battlefield. It's Battlefield 2, but it's called Northern Strike. Or no, it wasn't Northern Strike. It was oh my gosh, what was it? Armored Fury. So Battlefield 2, the add-on was called Armored Fury, and they wanted to use a publicly made producer, a public producer, to create a video based on that game. And so they gave me the whole outline for it, and I made it, and they loved it, and I had extra footage, so I gave them another one for free. And oh hey Red, I'm sorry, I shouldn't even been in this channel. I'm on another call. I'm sorry, buddy. Oh no worries. Thanks, man.
This is
Red.
real life shit happening
It
right
is
here,
real
man.
life.
So
I'm
hey,
doing a podcast, Red, with Randy. All right, never mind. He's gone.
if somebody wanted to see that, is there a place where they could go online and see this? Because I've seen it
Yes.
obviously, and it's awesome.
Uh,
Okay, so I will be putting it down here
yeah,
somewhere.
I'll send you some links, but really they should just Google my name, Joe Falcione, EA Games, or Battlefield. But I'll see if I can get you some links because a lot of that stuff is still online.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I have them on my Vimeo channel too, so I can send that to you directly.
So,
But
what kind of movies do you like as a movie kind of buff? What's upgrade running?
I
out of time?
love drama and I love action and I love dramatic action films.
So you don't watch any romantic comedies? Don't give me that bullshit.
No. However, I consider myself a pretty fucking funny guy. When it comes down to when the meat and potatoes meet the plate, you know, we've had some very funny conversations and I tend to say things off the cuff and I think sometimes I can hit the mark and I think that comedy is gold. And so some of the stuff in my Battlefield series, I decided, and a lot of people don't know this, but you know the end credits of a movie.
Yeah.
In all of my end credits, I started adding comedic riffs at the end of every Battlefield series, even the stuff for EA Games. And they sent me back and said, dude, we loved the ending. The ending was clutch. The ending was this. And it would be something like, you know, well, people can see it, but like there's a scene where in the 2142 series, in the snow series, the guy's on it's like a snowmobile, like an epic snowmobile or a futuristic snowmobile. There's a guy on the back on a machine gun and they start booking around. There's a guy standing there and then you hear it in the distance riding around and then you get some footage of it riding around. Then the one guy sitting there and then he looks up and as he looks up, you see this thing jump off the cliff and it's coming and he's looking up at this thing coming down at him and it just crushes him. I can't explain it, but on the video, it was really funny. And then the thing takes off, it crushes him, takes off and hits the next guy, splits him wide open. And so those little things were just, you know, the screams, were just funny. And I got a lot of feedback from that. And then what I noticed was other people started doing it in all their films. Even in some of the professional movies that you see today. And I'm not
That's
saying
the norm now, right? Because I
it's the
mean,
norm.
you used to be able to, as soon as the credits rolled, you got your popcorn and got the fuck out of there, right?
Yep.
Now you stay to the end because there's always shit at the end.
Yeah. So you got to remember, this was back in like the early 2000s. So that's when this stuff was happening. And again, I came up with that idea. I thought it was a great idea. It worked out well. So I started, that was like my trademark. That was my trademark, like signature type thing. So
Right.
it's in pretty much all of my films. The Battlefield Mayhem film that we did, where Red Dog is on the roof and we put all the bombs around the building. We blow the building up. It comes down, and somehow Red lived. And then all of a sudden you see his body just fall down. Then he's like, "Hey, what the hell happened to me?" And we were just rolling. It's a dumb scene, but man, it was funny. So anyway, my point is, I have some funny ideas, some stuff that I think would be really, really well done, and I'm going to shoot one of them here very soon. It's one of the things that I've been thinking about for a few
Awesome.
years, and I'm going to shoot it. It's a live action short, but it's dude, I think it's comedy gold. The stuff that, like, it's
Well,
hard for
Joe,
me
I
to-
hate
I'm
to
not
cut
trying
you
to
short,
prop
man. We
myself
are
up.
almost out of time, and I got to do the lightning
Oh.
round. This is my thing that I'm going to
Oh
do. with
wow,
the
I didn't
thing.
even know that, man.
Oh,
my
yeah,
gosh.
lightning round. Okay, so I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you, give you two choices. You got to get the first thing that pops into your head. Lightning round. Steak or seafood?
Oh, seafood and steak. Shit. Fuck. Surf and turf, man. I'm a surf and turf guy, so
Pick one.
seafood.
Attaboy. Pasta or tacos?
Shit, tacos.
Ooh, the Italian blood in you is just boiling,
Yeah.
dude. Rock
wife's-
or country?
What is it?
Rock or country?
Fuck. This was an easy question before. I would have said rock all day long, but I've been a country boy for a while now, and I'm really liking country. But I got to stick with rock.
Attaboy. All right, now I know this one you're going to bullshit me on. Assembly instructions or do you wing it?
You know I wing it.
Nah, fuck, I know you do.
I fucking wing it every time. And I go back and look at the instructions and get all pissed off.
Yeah.
Why didn't I look at the instructions when something doesn't go my way?
Do you sing in the car or you sing in the shower?
Car.
Attaboy. Beer or whiskey?
Whiskey.
Arena concert or small venues?
Small menus.
Why is that?
Because of all the shells and shit that used to explode near my head in the military, I have something called banging head syndrome, which I'll hear shit exploding head syndrome. Yeah, I'll literally be in like sleeping, and all of a sudden I'll hear explosions, and I jump up, and it's like it's real. I've lock and loaded before because it was so real, like shit just exploded outside my house. And then I get up and I realize they're not happening anymore. So anyway, when I go to the bigger concerts, I get that a lot.
I got you.
And my ears are just not like they used to be. So I like small venues much better. They're more intimate.
Absolutely. Well, that's about all the time we've got. Joe, thanks so
I
much
didn't know
for
we
being
were
the
limited
first.
in time. I had so much more to share with you. So
We'll have to do a part two. Either that
Yeah.
or I'm gonna have to stop being a cheap ass and actually pay for fucking Zoom or something like that.
I didn't know I have options, man. I got options for you. All right.
No
we'll work it
worries.
out.
We're gonna do a part two. This was actually more of a technical
Session anyway.
Session
All right.
anyway. Yeah. So I'm gonna post it anyway. Fuck you. I mean.
Good. I got so much I
And-
got to say, man.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm glad you were my first victim guest.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Hey, I got one thing to say. See if this one works for us. Hold on just 1 second. You're going to appreciate this very much.
Fucking bullets went right through his fucking head.
that's an inside joke, but it's
Yep.
still funny as hell. Joe, thanks so much. This is Joe Falcione. Check on his little links. It'll be down here somewhere where my finger is, somewhere around that area. Go check out his stuff, reliantfilms.net. I will also post all the other links that he sends me as well. Thanks so much for good time there, Joe.
Of course, buddy.
Always a pleasure. And thanks for tuning in for the first episode of Sinister One Podcast. Signing out.
Honored.